Kirsten, my dear, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm stoked.
Absolutely. I met Kirsten at the Realness Retreat in Austin, even though she lives in Encinitas, very close to me. But, and you were actually, I'd say at least 50% of the reason why I went, Connor being the other 50%.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, I at least made 50.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
That's all you need, right? Because I knew of Connor from his podcast and from being on Josh Trent's podcast, Wellness Force plug, go listen to them, and both of them. And I saw, oh, Connor's putting this on with this person who's actually from San Diego, and she's doing this feminine embodiment stuff, and like, I was going through some, like, am I, this is all in the TMI category, am I, too masculine, not feminine, all these kind of, like when you're, let's say, on the independent-er side, sometimes you have those struggles, and so I thought, okay, this is a great excuse to go to On It and go in Austin, and then subsequently maybe learn from Kirsten. So it was delightful to meet you at that.
Oh, so happy to meet you.
And then I got to hear about your quit, and I was like, would you like to share with the people? And you were generous enough to come over. And so take us back to your previous life.
All right, so that was, I've had a couple quits, and they all felt really good, sometimes scary, but they all led to something that was beautiful and amazing. And so, long story long, I lived in Encinitas, and I decided to kind of quit that life that I had here, quit a relationship, quit what I was doing, and I decided I was going to be a stunt woman and move to Los Angeles, which I had been training and going back and forth a couple times a week, and I was going to a gym here that you could do flips and training and parkour type stuff, which was really, really fun. I went up to LA, I got into that, I got into the SAG thing, and it was a lot of fun, and to continue, making money, because let's face it, acting and stunts is really difficult to consistently make money. I got into production, and I found myself in, I enjoyed it, but I found myself in a very masculine side of who I was, and it was completely out of alignment. And I just felt any turn that I made, whether it was in the relationship I had, whether it was within growth of that career, it was just a struggle. And there were great days, it was just a struggle. Realizing that career wasn't great for me, and being in production was fun and exciting, and it wasn't who I was. I needed to get back into my real body and get back into my real self. I was so disconnected. There was like 5 miles between my head and my body, right? I didn't know what was going on. I just, I'd be sick and not know it, or something would be going on and I wouldn't know it, or be able to understand and decipher. So then left that whole career. I didn't do stunts anymore. I realized that my body, I enjoyed my body, and I don't want to break it. A lot of physical stunts is you're putting your body 110% into whatever you're doing. So I just left production, left LA, left the relationship, and came back down to San Diego. And in the time I was there, I was doing a lot of personal growth and development. And when I got here, I just realized how important movement was, and how important it was just to get in touch with your body. And a lot of us hold emotional trauma in our bodies. A lot of us hold resentment in our bodies. And to be at work like this all the time, we hold all this tension in our bodies. And through developing the method and what that can be for women to come back into their bodies, and also how that can also heal them in different areas of their life. So that quit in LA led to me here.
Cool. Now we're gonna go back. What were you doing before the stunt womaning?
Stunt womaning, I was working as a massage therapist.
Okay. What, let's say, signs or maybe even physical symptoms led you to realize that wasn't your passion or your calling?
The massage therapy or massage therapy? It was, I'm very much a person who loves other people, and being in a dark room or a dim room with just one person and being very silent, body work is beautiful and it's an amazing thing, and I enjoyed the transformation that you can help somebody get through. But it was just not conducive to my personality. So that was just something where I was like, okay, cool, this is great, and I love it, and it's also not for me.
And how did that manifest for you? Were you feeling lonely, anxious?
Ooh, I felt frustrated. Yeah, I had a lot of frustration because I felt that I was doing good, and why wasn't I happy with doing good? You know, why wasn't I happy with making other people feel better, helping them feel better, or thinking different ways of, you know, just not being in tune with what was actually going on, and not being completely happy with where I was in life. It was kind of like another struggle.
Totally, because there's got to feel a lot of friction when you're a healer,
Mm-hmm.
and you are healing, but you're feeling as though that healing is somehow keeping you from your highest self.
It was, yeah. I'm like, here I am. I went to school for a holistic health practitioner. I am now working in a place where people are coming to see me to heal their bodies and to help them. And here I am just being frustrated, and not frustrated in an outwardly angry way, but just frustrated as in not happy with myself, not happy with where I was. It wasn't a money thing. It wasn't a relational thing. It was just like, oh.
Yeah, and I think that stress and that feeling is common among a lot of healers, from, like you said, hands-on holistic healers,
Mm-hmm.
physicians, that whole gamut in there. We're supposed to be helping other people, and there's a lot of pressure on us to show up as this very healthy person. But a lot of times the environment in which we're expected to practice is not conducive to that,
Mm-hmm.
from one way or another. You might have been at the best massage therapy place, you know, it couldn't, but just the fact that you have to be alone in a room,
Mm-hmm.
is not working for you. Or I used to be a multimedia designer, and there were 3 of us in a room with 9 monitors, and like nothing but like extremely small track lights at the top. Like, it was a dungeon. And I was like, I might enjoy this, but just not in this, like, when you'd go out for lunch, it was like, you hadn't seen the light in hours, and it's like, this is not how people should live. Like, my circadian rhythm has to be way off, because it just thinks I'm asleep 24/7.
What's going on?
Yeah. So you started to feel that frustration, and what kinds of fears, if any, did you have about leaving that and starting a whole new life in LA?
Fear of failure and not completing something yet again. I have this thing of, it's actually in my human design, and any like ENFP thing that you look at, I will start so many projects because I'm so interested and so curious and wanting to learn more, and then something else will take my curiosity, and I won't finish a project. And you know, getting my certification and being in this career and then moving on yet again, I was like, oh my gosh, my family, my friends, the people around me, they're just gonna, like, I don't even want to tell them that I'm moving to LA. I don't even want to tell them that I'm quitting this space, because I just feel like another failure, another quitter, and I can't do it. You know, like, I'm not hacking it.
Right. And what you said there is so poignant, because we equate failures and quitters in our vernacular very often. Hashtag destigmatize quitting. And then my entire goal in life. But it's that, you know, so much of society has, you know, winners never quit, quitters never win. So anybody who's quitting, well, that, of course, you're failing, you're moving on. When in reality, you were not winning before. You were losing your own health. It is a win to do something that no longer will take, you know, to quit something that no longer robs you of your health.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's funny how, you know, society, they're not close enough. And as Jason Goldberg, who is going to be a guest on this, we just recorded him, but I think he said, literally, like, that was maybe like the happiest hour and a half of my, we had, like, there's an obnoxious amount of laughing in that episode, as you can expect. But yeah, but he said people are either, and I'm pretty sure I'm quoting this right, JJ, tell me if I'm wrong, I think he said people are either they're either projecting or protecting, neither one is your problem. You know, like, okay, they're protecting you from trying to go to LA, or they're projecting their own fears they wouldn't go to LA. Neither one is going to deal with the fact that you weren't happy doing what you're doing and you wanted to move on, right?
Wow, that's great. I like that. It's a complete mindset shift of what am I getting from other people, and is it mine or is it theirs? Yeah, that's a great. And back to the your own health. I know so many people who are in a career where they went to the hospital. Maybe not so many people, but I do know a couple people who have gone so deep against what their alignment is and where they are and where they are happy, and have just given so much loyalty to their company instead of loyalty to themselves, and have gone to the hospital for exhaustion, for stress, for just breaking down, because they're just not able to say no, not able to quit.
Right. I was one of those people. First year of medical school.
Oh my God.
I kept going to my professors and I was like, my heart is racing. My heart is pounding. My heart is skipping beats. And like one of them was like a guy from China, so he's like trying to do more like Chinese medicine, feeling my pulse and this kind of thing, and nobody could come up with what it was. And finally, like one night, I'm dissecting the body with my partner, and we're studying something, and I was like, I feel like I'm gonna die. I need to like go to the hospital. So we went to the emergency department, and they do all the tests, and nothing is wrong. And then you just go back to medical school. And I was only in like first year. I hadn't gotten to like what is anxiety or what is a panic attack or like what, you know, this is 2001, but like this is a little bit before, you know, self-care and alignment and things were well known, and I'm in the Midwest. So essentially it was like, oh, my heart rate is too fast. Okay. Like there was nobody took a deeper look at that point. Like, why are you having this?
That is huge. And I don't know if we'll touch on this, so I want to
We'll touch on it.
Sneak it in there.
Touch it in.
Touch it in.
Touch it in.
Tap it in.
Awesome.
Oh God, I just lost my train of thought.
How nobody could, like, nobody asked why.
Yes. Okay, so we'll just get a pain in our body. All of a sudden you start having lower back pain or shoulder pain or knee pain, pain in your butt, whatever is going on, and it's just, okay, this is what my body is. I'm just getting quote unquote older. My body's breaking down. Our bodies are magnificent specimens, and it continues to heal itself. And if we continue to put so much stress and so much angst in one space of our body, and that's where we hold it, that's where you start creating disease.
Yeah.
And it's incredible that a lot of people say, oh, I just have shoulder pain, and that's what it is. Instead of asking themselves, like you did, why is this happening? Where is this coming from? How can I move past this, or how can I work with it to disperse what's actually happening?
Yeah, and unfortunately at the time, nobody asked, and I didn't ask. And fast forward, okay, that was first year of medical school. Fast forward to fellowship, which is 7 years later, I was taking beta blockers to slow down my heart. Not realizing, no, it's because you're anxious, because you don't enjoy seeing patients in this like one patient every 15-minute like rat race that I was in. It wasn't until somebody else outside of me said, I think you have anxiety, and I was like, nah. And I looked back and I was like, oh. Like, and it's not that I was like generalized anxiety, but certain situations, anxiety is my like the canary in the coal mine. And so when I ask people, what symptoms did you have that led you to need to quit? That's what I mean. Like your body will start whispering until it starts yelling, you know? So it starts off maybe as a feeling in the pit of your stomach, moves on to like, okay, now I'm having heart palpitations all the time, moves on to like, oh, now I'm gonna have acid reflux. Like your body is gonna keep whispering till if you don't pay attention, it's gonna scream. And my body screamed for a long time, but I just didn't understand what it was saying. And that's why my role in this universe right now is so important to me, because I want to say to other people, like, if your body is whispering to you, quit whatever it is that's causing the whispering, because like nobody told that to me, and like the least I can do is pass that on.
Yeah, that's such an important thing to remember is listening and taking the time to do that, because we're in such a go do atmosphere in life that's constantly in the rat race of moving up in your career, getting more money, buying the house, having the family, and there's so many things going on that we don't really sit down and be like, all right, cool. And I mean, not even talking about meditation, but just slowing down and listening.
Yeah, absolutely. I was having a discussion with another podcast guest this morning. We were talking about like biohacking. There's so many things you could do to escape the being. You know, like even in the interest of your own health, okay, now I'm going to do cold thermogenesis, and I'm going to run this 50K, and I'm going to meditate, I'm going to journal. It's like, yeah, some of those are really important parts in slowing down, but sometimes just the slowing down and being and not doing a thing. You have to have that time for your body to check in with your body.
Yeah, observation.
Yeah, absolutely. So you end up somehow being able to conquer your fears. Was there anything that helped you in that process? When you, like, everybody's saying, like, are you sure you should go to LA? And you're like, no, I'm going to do it anyway. Is it just, instilled fortitude, or how did you do it?
It's stubbornness.
I appreciate the honesty.
It's people saying, oh, no, don't do that, or you can't do that. Can you really make it up there? I'm like, oh, okay. Let me show you.
Yeah.
Let me actually be like, yes.
Yeah.
And I did. maybe not to the extreme extent of becoming a well-known stunt person or a producer, an assistant director or something like that, but I did it. And I realized, thank God, that it just wasn't for me. And I mean, there are times that I would still love to be a stunt person. I was like saving up to go to stunt driving school and be a driver. And one of my friends up in LA, she's one of the top stunt women drivers, and she's just so phenomenal. So that still kind of is like, hey, I'm here. But I think it's just my love for adrenaline and physical activity and pushing myself in cars. I love cars, so it's kind of like a given. But yeah, it was just okay, cool. Watch me do this. Same thing happened when I grew up in Park City, Utah, and my family was more of like the bottom end of the blue collar crowd.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to go to California. I'm going to go to college there and figure my stuff out in California. I'm sick of being a snow bunny. I want to be a surfer girl. And I got the same thing. I'm like, are you sure about that? Do you have enough money? Like, you didn't come from a whole lot of money. Like, how are you going to do that? And I'm like, okay, cool. Watch me. Peace.
I love it. That's so good. Yeah, whatever it takes, whatever your inspiration is to get over the fears.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Okay, so you're in LA, and when you decide, now you've done that kind of, okay, I'm going to show you thing, but then when you realize it's not for you, then did you have this second wave of like when you wanted to re-quit, like when you wanted to quit that next thing, was that kind of like, oh, those people are going to think I failed?
Let me go back to that time. I had pulled away from so many people when I was up there that I had friends, and most of them were work friends. I did have some friends outside of work. And I just got to such a point in production where I had such a bad taste in my mouth that it was like a F this type thing. And, I'm not going to sit here and be treated like how I'm being treated. Don't get me wrong, there's great people. I had amazing experiences up there. And there are people up there who you're just like, I'm not going to let you treat me that way. And I refuse to sit here and say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, yes, no, ma'am, no, sir, and just take it. So I was just so, I can't even think of the word right now, but I was just so done with it. And so over the disrespect that I got from a couple people, that just, it was more like a, no.
Yeah, and I like what you brought up there is you decided to surround yourself with the people who weren't those naysayers from before. And it's harder when the naysayers are family because you have maybe it's slightly harder to just walk away from your family. Slightly, I mean, it's doable. I've done an article on a Facebook Live or two about this, but it's possible. But they're a little bit more likely still there with you. Friends are easier to kind of pivot away from. And so the people who were initially kind of saying, no, you can't make it, that's a lot of what people in this kind of personal development journey often face. To be the new person you need to be to go to the next level, you may need to find a whole new circle of friends. Because a lot of times the circle that you're with doesn't necessarily want to see you progressing and changing, and because that may mean that you're moving in a direction that they're not going to really jive with anymore. So then you have to find your new 5 people that you surround yourself with that you're the average of. And that's what you did when you went to LA, right?
Yeah, that's what I did when I went to LA, and I had, like we were talking about, I had some friends that were outside of the actual production space, and then friends who are in this production space, and really surrounding yourself with people who are moving up as well. Because there were a lot of people there who were very fine with the position that they had, and they had no yearning to go any higher above that. It was just like, nope, this is where I make my money, and I'm totally cool. And I think that's great for that person. For me, I want to keep moving. I want to keep moving up, and so to surround yourself with those people who are go-getters. But it just came to a head where I was like, no, this is, and that was in the midst of my own personal development, my own personal growth, where I'm really digging in and finding new things. So I think that's what made it easier to leave that time too, is because I was realizing I'm extremely unhappy. I don't know if you've had this experience of me, but I'm a very happy person.
I have.
I'm a very happy person, and I was not happy. I was going into work. I can usually find the silver lining in any situation. I was going into work, I was very unhappy, grumpy, just a bad attitude, not me at all. And it felt really uncomfortable to be in that body and in that skin. And then as I started reading more and developing myself and kind of seeing these different angles, that's what helped me quit more so than now being seen as a failure. It was seeing that this isn't healthy for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
especially
I'm not going to put up with other people's shit.
Right,
Oh,
absolutely.
sorry.
No, that's a totally free.
It's a cussing free.
Yeah, it's
cussing is okay.
Yeah, cussing is okay. Yes, yeah, it is not marked clean on iTunes. It is whatever it is. But you brought up a lot of good points there. Is it may not be your own physical symptom necessarily, but it may be the person you, and like there are things that I've had to quit because I realize that the person I am when I'm there is not a person I am proud of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it brings out that anger in you or your irritability, and like that's just kind of the universe saying like this is such friction that you know like you shouldn't be here. And I've kind of recently gone through one of these quits where I was like, every time I go to this certain thing, I'm feeling this certain way, and this place increases my self-talk like 100-fold, you know. And there's that other little voice that's like, well, this is your challenge. You should like keep working to get through this. That which doesn't kill you can only make you stronger until it kills you, right?
Right.
You know, like at some point in time, you're like, when is this friction good for self-growth versus when is this just too much friction that's going to wear me down?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to make that decision. And like you did, you're like, I don't want to go in and be a person who's not me every day. Like, I'm not growing. This is actually bringing me backward. I appreciate that very much. And then you talked about doing the work to get to know yourself and realize that this wasn't working. What methodologies did you use?
I used a couple different ones. So I started getting into what coaching was and what that looks like. Realized that's not my jam either. I'm more of a teacher. But reading different books, The Tao of Pooh is one of my most favorite books, and the movie that just came out.
Aww.
Have you seen it?
No.
Oh my god, I literally was like, this is amazing. But The Tao of Pooh, The Four Agreements or The Fifth Agreement, those books that are really looking at, you know, your own alignment, how you're showing up in the world and what that looks like, and really being true and understanding yourself, and then also having these conversations, because I was kind of opening my eyes to this new realm of personal growth, you know, just kind of taking that introspective route and saying, okay, cool, who am I? And that's a lot of what I talk about, is like, who are you outside of what you do?
Right.
Which I think is a huge important thing, and finding that for myself and finding my own alignment. It's like, all right, who am I outside of what I do? Because I have done a lot. It was just introspection and having those books as my staple.
Yeah. That's a hugely valuable point that you bring up, because what makes things super hard to quit is when your identity is super wrapped up in it. Like, especially for professionals that have spent so much time, like, okay, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, to go to saying, like we talked about at the retreat, just like saying, oh, okay, I'm a coach or whatever, like ripping that identity away. But again, that's just replacing it with another job-related identity. Mm-hmm. If you ask me who are you at the core, I'm like, I'm just a dancer. You know, like,
I love that.
right? Like, that's at the end of the day. Like in Jason Goldberg's thing, the podcast we recorded, he's like, are we going to dance in this podcast? I was like, man, that would be, he said, have you ever danced in this podcast? And I'm thinking, we should. Like, it's a little hard to get across in podland. You can't see us.
My booty.
Yeah, exactly.
My hips are gyrating.
But she's gyrating.
Gyrating in front of the gun.
But that's the thing, like, Tim Ferriss talks about diversification of identity. Yeah, part of your identity can be what you do, and it can be related to another person. Okay, I'm a husband, I'm a mother, but there are plenty of parts of it that are just you, that no job firing or no divorce or no breakup can take from you. And I think that's what's really important to find in these transitions. It's like, you are not your job. And you can be parts of your job. You can say, when you're a massage therapist, I am a healer, but it doesn't have to be through massage therapy. It can be through your fem method or coaching or teaching or whatever other, whatever modality it is. You're still a healer, so your job can reflect it, but they don't have to be the same.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more with that.
Anything else from your journey that you've gone through that you think would be valuable for the listeners, thinking about their own quits or having their own identity shifts?
I would say, as far as the most important thing that I can think of right now is finding your identity outside of what you do. I think that's huge. Just exactly what you touched upon right now. We are so wrapped up into, I'm a lawyer. Then if I'm not a lawyer, who am I outside of that? And instead of us talking to a woman, and we were talking about different prompts that we give to people, and she's like, I actually ask people who they are, and instead of writing a noun, write an adjective.
Oh.
I was like, oh, that's a good one.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like, what is this? Instead of I'm a mother, I'm a giver. I nurture. I am an adventurer, or I love XYZ.
Yeah.
Like really sitting down and discovering who you are, and going back into what else I think is important is finding your morals and your values, because when you have morals and values, you now have something to help you in decisions. So this decision over here, is it serving your values? Is it in line with your morals? If it's not, then is it the right decision?
Yeah.
It's especially with people who are very indecisive, which I'm one of those people. I have to say, okay, cool. Like, if I were to go with this, where does it stand on my value scale?
Yeah.
So I think that's really, really important, which ties into having your own identity and knowing what that is solidly. I don't even know if that's a word, but solidly.
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because on another interview I did today, the woman was saying that once she knew who she was, anything that was out of alignment just kind of slid off her. Like she just couldn't. I just kind of, when she was talking, I just pictured her like Teflon. It would come toward her and just this job that wasn't working, just all of a sudden it went away, and this relationship that wasn't working went away. Because if you're not in tune with yourself, you don't necessarily know when things are causing friction or when they're in or out of alignment, because you're just going through the emotions.
Exactly.
And once you get in line with yourself, things become like, oh, hold it, now I felt there's something in the pit of my stomach, I should pay attention to that. And you just can't tolerate you just don't tolerate things. And so when people look at me as I've quit many things, and we've both quit many things, and because they're all just pivot points in life, and I'm fairly proud of that, because, for example, relationships in the TMI category, I have not had one that was longer than a year since I was 20, and everybody's like, oh, why not? And I say, well, because the second they're not working, I don't stay in them. I don't need to stay in a relationship for 3 years that was sour for 2 of those just for the sake of, my body just rejects anything once it stops working. I mean, there's a period of reflection, okay, can this be fixed? That's part of strategic quitting. Do I need to get rid of the whole thing, or are there fixable parts? Don't always just get rid of everything. I'm talking to the camera like anybody in Podland. But yeah, that's Podland. But yeah, that's step 2 of strategic quitting, is figuring out what part needs to go. And it may just be okay, one part of your relationship isn't working. But generally in all the ones I've had, it's okay, I know this isn't forever, and there's definitely something that's not working right now. There's no need to just stick around and kind of fight it out for another 2 years, whatever people do. And so it's because I do know who I am and what works for me, that there have been so many quits, because it's we start off as kind of lumps of clay, like a sculptor, and a sculptor doesn't start by starting with a little chunk of clay and then adding other clay to it, right? They take away the things that aren't working, and the art is revealed, and that's what I feel like life is for me.
I love that analogy.
Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. I just came up with it the other day when somebody was like, life is not about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. And I was like, yes. And I thought creating through quit, and then all of a sudden I just pictured the sculptor taking things away, and I was like, that is what we're doing, you know?
I absolutely love that, and it's such a great and beautiful visual too.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I also appreciate you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And by the way, Kirsten has a new show coming up, a podcast. So tell us about it.
Oh my gosh, I'm super excited about it. It's called The Art of Being Feminine. So it's going to be a lot of talks, mainly geared towards women who are just these conversations, these curious conversations with other women, and I will have some men on there as well. But talking about relationships, talking about your own self-discoveries, talking about your desires, your sensuality, your sexuality, your health, and what that looks like, philosophies and careers, and what it is to be them as a woman. So, if you look at artwork, it's all different. It's all up into that person's interpretation. So some people connect better with this person's art, and some people connect better with this person's art. But it's just these conversations of what's going on today, and a different face of leadership, which is the rise of the feminine side of leadership, which is really exciting, bringing everybody up. It's not this rise in feminist or femininity and it's very combative and aggressive, which is masculine, struggles, or had this time where they were in their masculine and now in their feminine, or depression, or in career that was out of alignment, you know. And then also talking to men of like them in their masculine, or men who are dating women and what it's like to date